Greetings and salutations, and welcome to my channel. For those who are not familiar, I make these little videos about things I enjoy and want to share, most often regarding film, but once in a blue moon I may work in something else such as a TV show, game, or book, and so on. But before we begin on this video, before we get started, if you enjoy this content, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, as well as hitting that bell icon so you'll get notifications when I put up new content, which is usually 1 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. Be sure to check out my back catalog and stick around to the end. And don't forget to share both this video and channel around, as it really does help out quite a bit. Now that this is all out of the way, let's jump into Night of the Creeps from 1986, starring Tom Atkins. Okay, yeah, there are more people in this movie, such as Jason Lively, who many of you may know from European Vacation. But Tom Atkins, I mean, come on. He's a reason to watch this. But what is this movie all about? Well, the synopsis for this film is as follows. Alien brain parasites, entering humans through the mouth, turn their host into killing zombies. Some teenagers start to fight against them. Cool. Okay, well, yeah, alien parasites, these little slug-like beings, they kind of skitter around and hop right into somebody's mouth, living or dead, turning them into these mindless zombies, these weird little creatures bent on killing. So, sure, we've seen all that zombie stuff before, but where this one kind of stuck out to me was that added level of it just being some weird alien thing, as well as the comedy that they sprinkle throughout. You know, none of this film should be taken seriously in any way. It's definitely a B movie. It's got lots of puns and other small jokes littered throughout. Even from early on in the film, as everything is kind of being set up, it's, you know, much more lighthearted than one would kind of expect from this kind of zombie slash, you know, alien invasion kind of film. And it works just fine. You know, it's a lot of fun. But that brings up an interesting scene here, which provides some exposition, you know, in the method of having our main character, played by Jason Lively, listen to a recorded message from someone that they know really closely who became infected by this parasite. And, you know, they kind of were recording their findings, you know, how these parasites work, how to defeat them, and so on, as it's slowly taking them over. It's a surprisingly serious little scene that's, you know, trying to tug at the heartstrings a little, which, while I enjoyed it, it was definitely completely out of place for everything else in the film. You know, everything else is so just don't take it serious, and then you throw in this serious scene. Which, again, the scene on its own is fine, but the way that it was worked in kind of threw things off a little. But, yeah, it's just supposed to be a fun little film. But anyways, let's get back to Atkins. So, he just plays a badass, like he does in most things that he's in. He's got a bit of his haunted past, and he's been dealing with for decades, some PTSD kind of stuff, and he's kind of called forth to like answer the call on this parasitic invasion. And you know, as in some other work that I've seen him in, he just simply owns every scene. You know, he just really comes across like he does in other films, like say Halloween 3. You know, you'll love to see him in this one as well if you liked Halloween 3. Now, I had not seen this film in years, easily more than a decade. But I was checking out the director's cut, which, since it had been so long since I'd seen whatever version I'd watched before, I didn't really know what was different. You know, since it had been so long, I didn't remember enough about the film to really know what changes this director's cut was bringing to the table. But it was still, you know, a really fun ride. But another interesting thing I noticed this time around, which I'd never noticed before, were the character names. So the last names of several characters in this film are kind of being based on famous horror and sci-fi directors, such as George Romero, we have a character named Chris Romero, John Carpenter and Toby Hooper, we have James Carpenter Hooper, David Cronenberg, we have a character named Cynthia Cronenberg, James Cameron, we have Detective Ray Cameron, John Landis for Detective Landis, Sam Raimi for Sergeant Raimi, and Steve Miner for Mr. Miner the janitor. So they just kind of littered it all throughout, and the first time I'd seen this through the last time, which was about 10 years ago, I never caught on to any of that for some reason. This time it all just really stuck out. But, you know, I don't even remember looking back how these alien slugs even came about. I had no recollection of where they came from. But even so, I did remember a couple of scenes that stuck out, and it all worked. You know, it did, it's just a really fun, silly, stupid B movie. But, you know, the only negative thing I can say is that it takes a little bit to get going. You know, it's so fun the way that they're introducing everybody and the way that it's setting up the situation and the relationships, especially between our main character, you know, the main star and one of his friends. and kind of laying the groundwork for the Atkins character. But they put in those little bits of comedy and sci-fi thrown on top of this, you know, alien invasion kind of story, this infection-based horror film, and we get this great essence of like a 50s and 60s sci-fi kind of movie mixed with some of the 80s gross out creeping horror that really make this one worth, you know, checking out. And hey, Tom Atkins, he's just awesome. So there's that. Anyways, that's about it for this little recommendation. You know, Night of the Creeps. Track this one down and check it out if you can. But just remember, it's a B movie. It's not to be taken seriously. But if you go into it that mindset as something that's gonna be silly, maybe even having some friends over, have a couple drinks or whatever substance of your choice, and just enjoy that cheesiness, you can have some good times. Speaking of good times, I hope you had a good time with this little video, and thanks for sticking around to the end, as like all those other YouTube notices that I was putting up at the beginning about subscribing and all that, sticking around and really checking out the whole video really does help out a lot. Anyways, Night of the Creeps, 1986, check it out, and I will see you in the next one.